Part 1. The Abandoned Child. The morning sun painted the Dakota Territory sky in shades of orange and pink, but 8-year-old Lucy McCready couldn't see any beauty in it. She sat on the wooden steps of their small cabin, watching her father, Thomas, load their old wagon with the last of their belongings. The sound of creaking wood and rustling canvas filled the cold air. "Papa, where are we going?" Lucy asked for the 100th time that week. Her breath came out in small white puffs as she spoke. Thomas stopped loading and looked at his daughter. His face was tired and worn, like leather left too long in the sun. Dark circles under his eyes told the story of sleepless nights and impossible decisions. He had aged 10 years in the past 6 months since they buried his wife and baby son behind the cabin. "Lucy, come here, sweetheart," he said softly, sitting down beside her on the steps. She moved closer to him, and he wrapped his strong arms around her small frame. She could smell the familiar scent of tobacco and hard work on his clothes. It was a smell that usually made her feel safe, but today something felt different. "You remember what I told you about the men who came last week?" Thomas asked gently. Lucy nodded. She remembered the scary men in dark suits who had talked loudly with her father about money and papers. They had used big words she didn't understand, but she could tell they were angry. "Well, those men say we owe them money. A lot of money. More money than we have," Thomas explained, his voice getting quieter. "They want our land, our cabin, everything we have." "But this is our home," Lucy said, her voice small and confused. "I know, darling. I know." Thomas pulled her closer. "But sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices. Choices that don't feel good, but are the only way." The wind picked up, whistling through the bare trees around their property. In the distance, Lucy could see the graves of her mother and little brother, 2 small wooden crosses that her father had made with his own hands. The sight made her stomach feel heavy. "I have to go find work, Lucy. Real work that pays good money. The kind of work that's far away from here," Thomas continued. "The mining camps up north, they pay well. But it's no place for a little girl." Lucy felt her heart start to beat faster. She didn't like where this conversation was going. "I'm coming with you, Papa. I can help. I can cook and clean and—" "No, sweetheart." Thomas turned her around so she was looking directly at him. His eyes were red and watery. "Those mining camps are dangerous places. Men live in tents and work in deep holes in the ground. There are no schools, no other children, no safe places for little girls to play." "Then don't go," Lucy said, her voice getting louder. "We can stay here. We can grow food and raise chickens like Mama did. We don't need those mean men's money." Thomas closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, Lucy saw something there that scared her more than the men in dark suits. "Lucy, listen to me carefully. Mrs. Henderson in town, she can't take you. Her husband got hurt real bad and they have their own troubles. The church folks, they're all struggling too. Everyone's having hard times right now." Lucy felt tears starting to form in her eyes. "What are you saying, Papa?" "I'm saying that sometimes when grown-ups can't take care of their children the way they should, they have to make sure those children are safe until they can come back for them." "Come back?" Lucy's voice was barely a whisper now. Thomas reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside were a few coins, a wooden cross that had belonged to his wife, and a small photograph of their family taken the previous summer. "This is for you," he said, putting the pouch in her hands. "I want you to keep this safe, and I want you to remember that your papa loves you more than anything in the whole world." Lucy stared at the pouch, not understanding. The photograph showed all 4 of them standing in front of the cabin. Her mother was holding baby Daniel, and Lucy was standing between her parents, smiling. They all looked so happy. It felt like a lifetime ago. "I'm going to leave you here, at the cabin," Thomas said, his voice breaking slightly. "Someone will come. Someone always comes along this road. Good people who can help you find a family who can take proper care of you." "No." The word came out of Lucy like a whisper at first, then louder. "No, Papa. No." She threw her arms around his neck, holding on as tight as she could. "Please don't leave me. I'll be good. I won't eat much. I can work hard. Please, Papa, please don't leave me here." Thomas held her close, feeling her small body shake with sobs. His own tears fell silently into her brown hair. This was the hardest thing he had ever done in his life. Harder than burying his wife. Harder than losing his farm. Harder than admitting failure. "Lucy, look at me," he said, gently pulling her away so he could see her face. "I promise you I will come back. As soon as I earn enough money to pay off those men and buy us a new place to live, I will come back for you." "When?" she asked through her tears. "Soon. Maybe by spring. Maybe summer at the latest." Thomas wiped her tears with his rough hands. "But you have to be brave for me. You have to be the strongest little girl in the whole territory." He reached into the wagon and pulled out a small bundle wrapped in her mother's quilt. Inside were her few remaining dresses, her favorite book, and a small doll that her mother had made for her last birthday. "This is everything you need," he said. "And remember what your mama always told you about being kind to everyone you meet?" Lucy nodded, sniffling. "She said kindness opens doors that money can't." "That's right. So you be kind and you be brave, and you remember that somewhere out there, your papa is working hard to come back to you." Thomas stood up and walked toward the wagon. Every step felt like walking through deep mud. He climbed up onto the driver's seat and picked up the reins. Lucy ran to the wagon wheel and wrapped her arms around it. "Don't leave me here, Papa. Please, I'm scared." The sound of her crying cut through Thomas like a knife. He wanted to jump down from that wagon, pick up his little girl, and take her with him no matter what dangers lay ahead. But he knew the truth that she was too young to understand. The mining camps were no place for a child. Men died there every week from accidents, fights, and diseases. The cold would kill her before spring came. "Be brave, Lucy. Someone good will come along. I know they will." Thomas's voice was rough with emotion. "I love you more than all the stars in the sky." He clicked his tongue and urged the horses forward. The wagon began to roll down the dirt road, away from the cabin, away from everything they had known as home. Lucy ran alongside the wagon for as long as her short legs could keep up. "Papa, Papa, come back. Don't leave me here, Papa." Her voice echoed across the empty prairie as the wagon grew smaller and smaller in the distance. Finally, when she couldn't run anymore, she collapsed on the dirt road, crying so hard she could barely breathe. The sun climbed higher in the sky, but Lucy didn't move from that spot. She kept hoping that her father would change his mind and come back. She kept listening for the sound of wagon wheels turning around, but the only sounds were the wind through the grass and the occasional call of a hawk circling overhead. As the day wore on, Lucy finally walked back to the cabin. It felt strange and empty without her father's presence. She sat on the front steps, clutching her small bundle and the leather pouch, watching the road for any sign of travelers. The cabin behind her held memories of better times. She could almost hear her mother singing while she cooked dinner, could almost see baby Daniel crawling across the wooden floor. But now, it was just quiet and cold. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in deep purples and reds, Lucy realized that her father really wasn't coming back today. Maybe not tomorrow either. She was alone in a way that she had never been alone before. She had no way of knowing that high on a distant ridge, a Lakota scout named Swift Eagle had been watching the settlement all day. He had seen the wagon leave and the small figure left behind. In his world, children were precious beyond measure, protected by the entire tribe. The sight of a child abandoned troubled him deeply. Swift Eagle had been sent by his band to watch for soldier movements and to keep track of which settler families were leaving their claims. But this was different. This was a child in danger, and in the code he lived by that changed everything. As darkness fell over the Dakota territory, Lucy curled up inside the cabin, wrapped in her mother's quilt. She whispered prayers that her father had taught her and tried to believe that tomorrow would bring help. She had no idea that help was already closer than she thought, watching over her from the darkness beyond. The first part of Lucy's incredible journey was ending, but the most important part of her story was just about to begin. Part 2. The promise of kinship 3 days had passed since Thomas McCready drove away, and Lucy was barely hanging on to life. The February cold in Dakota Territory was brutal, the kind that could freeze a person solid in just a few hours. She had tried to keep a fire going in the cabin's small stove, but the wood had run out on the second day. Now she lay curled up in her mother's quilt, too weak from hunger and cold to even cry anymore. Her lips were blue, and her small hands had no feeling left in them. The leather pouch with her father's gifts lay beside her, but she was too weak to hold it. Lucy drifted in and out of strange dreams. Sometimes she thought she heard her mother calling her name. Sometimes she imagined she could smell her father's tobacco smoke. But mostly, there was just the terrible cold and the empty feeling in her stomach. On the morning of the 4th day, she heard something that wasn't part of a dream. The sound of footsteps crunching through the snow outside the cabin. Heavy footsteps that moved carefully and quietly. Lucy tried to sit up, but her body wouldn't obey. She managed to turn her head toward the door, hoping against hope that her father had come back for her. The door opened slowly, letting in a stream of bright sunlight that hurt her eyes. A tall figure stood in the doorway, but it wasn't her father. The man who entered was unlike anyone Lucy had ever seen before. He was tall and strong-looking, with long black hair that fell past his shoulders. His skin was dark and weathered from years in the sun and wind. He wore clothes made from animal skins, decorated with colorful beads and feathers. This was Swift Eagle, though Lucy didn't know his name yet. He had been watching the cabin for 3 days, waiting to see if the child's father would return. When no wagon came back, he knew he had to act. Swift Eagle knelt beside the small bundle of quilts and carefully pulled them back. What he saw made his heart heavy. The little girl was barely alive, her face pale and her breathing shallow. "Little one," he said softly in English, though his accent was thick. "Little one, can you hear me?" Lucy's eyes fluttered open. She saw a face looking down at her with dark, kind eyes. For a moment, she was frightened. She had heard scary stories about Indians from some of the settlers in town. But this man's expression was gentle, concerned like her father's face when she was sick. Swift Eagle reached out slowly and touched her forehead. She was burning with fever despite the cold. He knew she wouldn't last another day without help. "Don't be afraid," he said in his careful English. "I help you." He gathered Lucy up in her quilt, surprised by how light she was. She felt like a small bird in his arms. As he lifted her, the leather pouch fell to the floor. Swift Eagle saw the photograph that spilled out, showing a family standing in front of this very cabin. He understood then that this child had been left behind, abandoned by people who should have protected her. In his culture, such a thing was unthinkable. Children were gifts from the Great Spirit to be treasured and protected by everyone in the tribe. Swift Eagle tucked the photograph and pouch inside his coat and carried Lucy outside to his horse. She was barely conscious, mumbling words he couldn't understand. He wrapped her carefully in warm furs that he had brought, then mounted his horse with her secure in his arms. The ride to his village took most of the day. Swift Eagle stopped frequently, to check on the child and to give her small sips of water from his pouch. He spoke to her gently in both Lakota and English, telling her she was safe now, that help was coming. As they approached the Lakota encampment, Swift Eagle could see the smoke from cooking fires rising into the winter sky. The circular arrangement of teepees looked warm and welcoming after the empty, cold cabin, but he also knew that bringing a white child into the village would cause problems. His people had suffered greatly at the hands of white soldiers and settlers. Many of his friends and relatives had been killed in conflicts over land and resources. Some members of his tribe would not understand why he was helping a white child. The first person to notice them arriving was his wife, Morning Star. She was a woman of 30 years with intelligent eyes and gentle hands that had delivered many babies and healed many injuries in their tribe. Morning Star had lost their own daughter to the white man's disease 2 winters ago. A sickness called smallpox had swept through many tribes, taking children and elders alike. Since then, her arms had felt empty, her heart heavy with grief. When she saw her husband carrying a small sick child, her maternal instincts took over immediately. She didn't care about the color of the child's skin or where she had come from. She saw only a little girl who needed help. "Bring her to our lodge," Morningstar said quickly in Lakota, running ahead to prepare a warm place by their fire. Swift, Eagle carried Lucy into their teepee, which was warm and cozy inside. Buffalo robes covered the ground and a fire crackled in the center pit, sending dancing shadows up the walls. The smell of cooking stew made Lucy's empty stomach rumble. Morning. Star had already prepared a soft bed of furs near the fire. She took Lucy from her husband's arms with the same care she would show her own child. "She's very sick," Swift Eagle said in Lakota. "I found her alone in a cabin. Her family left her behind." Morningstar's face grew sad and angry at the same time. What kind of people leave a child to die alone? She began working immediately, removing Lucy's worn dress and wrapping her in warm, dry clothes. She felt the child's forehead and listened to her breathing. "Get me water and the healing roots," she told her husband, and asked Grandmother Willow for her special tea for bringing down fevers. For the next several hours, Morningstar worked tirelessly to save Lucy's life. She spooned warm broth between her lips, bathed her with cool water when the fever spiked, and sang soft Lakota lullabies that her own mother had sung to her. Swift Eagle sat nearby, watching his wife care for the white child with the same love she had shown their own daughter. He knew then that the Great Spirit had guided him to that cabin for a reason. Other members of the tribe came to see what was happening. Some were curious, others concerned, and a few were openly hostile. "Why do you bring a white child here?" asked Thunderhawk, one of the younger warriors. "Her people have brought us nothing but trouble." "This child has brought us no trouble," Swift Eagle replied calmly. "She is innocent of the crimes of adults. Would you leave a Lakota child to die if you found her abandoned?" "That's different," Thunderhawk argued. "She's not one of us. She is a child," said Grandmother Willow, the eldest woman in the tribe. "All children belong to the Great Spirit first, to their people second. If her people have abandoned her, then the Great Spirit has brought her to us for a reason." The rank debate continued throughout the evening, but Morningstar paid no attention to it. Her focus was entirely on the little girl who fought for life in her arms. Sometime during the night, Lucy's fever finally broke. Her breathing became deeper and more regular. When morning came, she opened her eyes for the first time since Swift Eagle had found her. The first thing she saw was Morningstar's kind face looking down at her. The woman was humming a tune that Lucy didn't recognize but somehow found comforting. "Hello, little one," Morningstar said softly in English. "You are safe now." Lucy tried to speak, but her throat was too dry. Morningstar helped her sit up and gave her small sips of cool water. Where am I?" Lucy managed to whisper. "You are in our home," Morningstar explained. "My husband found you very sick. We have been taking care of you." Lucy looked around the teepee with wide eyes. Everything was so different from her cabin. The walls curved up to a point at the top, and through the smoke hole she could see blue sky. Beautiful designs were painted on the inside walls, showing animals and symbols she didn't understand. "I want my papa," Lucy said, tears starting to fill her eyes. Morningstar's heart broke at the pain in the child's voice. She had heard the full story from her husband, how the child had been left alone, how her father had driven away in a wagon. "I know you do, little one, but your papa is not here right now. Until he comes back, you will stay with us. We will take care of you." "Are you Indians?" Lucy asked, though she tried to whisper it politely. Morningstar smiled gently. "We are Lakota. We are people, just like you are people. We live differently than your people, but we love our children just the same." Swift Eagle entered the teepee carrying firewood. When he saw that Lucy was awake and talking, his face broke into a smile. "Ah, little bird is awake," he said in his careful English. "You gave us big worry." Lucy studied his face. Now that she wasn't dying, she could see that he looked nothing like the scary Indians from the stories she'd heard in town. His eyes were kind, and he moved gently around the teepee, careful not to startle her. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Swift Eagle sat down cross-legged near her bed. He thought carefully about how to explain it in English. "In our way," he said slowly. "All children are sacred gifts. When we find child in danger, we must help. Is our duty to Great Spirit." "Great Spirit?" "What you might call God," Morningstar explained. "The one who watches over all living things." Lucy nodded. That made sense to her. Her mother had always said that God watched over children especially. Over the following days, Lucy grew stronger. Morningstar fed her warm soup and soft bread, and gradually she began to put on weight. The color came back to her cheeks and she started to smile again. Part 3. Between Two Worlds. 2 years had passed since Swift Eagle found Lucy freezing in that abandoned cabin. Now 10 years old, she had grown into a healthy, bright child who moved easily between two very different worlds. The Lakota had given her a new name, Tanyetu, which meant little dove, though she still remembered her birth name. Spring was coming to the Dakota Territory in 1878, and with it, new challenges that would test everything Lucy had learned about family, loyalty, and survival. She woke up in Morningstar's teepee as she had every morning for 2 years, but today felt different. There was tension in the air, whispered conversations between the adults that stopped when children came near. "Mama Star," Lucy said, using the name she had created for Morningstar. "Why is everyone acting strange today?" Morningstar was preparing breakfast over the fire, but her usual smile seemed forced. "Nothing for you to worry about, little dove. Eat your food." But Lucy was old enough now to sense when the adults were keeping secrets. She had learned to speak Lakota almost perfectly, and she understood much more than people realized. After breakfast, she found Swift Eagle checking his weapons outside their teepee. This was something he only did when trouble was expected. "Papa, Swift Eagle," she said. "Are soldiers coming?" Swift Eagle looked down at his adopted daughter. In 2 years, she had become the light of his life. Her curiosity and quick mind impressed everyone in the tribe. She could track animals almost as well as the grown men, knew which plants were good for medicine, and could ride a horse like she was born to it. But she was also still a white child, in a world where the conflict between whites and Indians was getting worse every day. "Maybe, little dove, maybe soldiers come. That's why we might need to move camp soon." Lucy's stomach dropped. Moving camp meant leaving the only stable home she had known since her father left. But more than that, it meant danger for everyone she loved. "Is it because of me?" she asked quietly. "Because I'm white?" Swift Eagle knelt down so he was at her eye level. "Little dove, you are Lakota now. You are my daughter. But yes, some white people might not understand that. They might think we took you against your will, but you saved my life. We know that. You know that. But frightened people don't always listen to the truth." That afternoon, Lucy's world became even more complicated. A small group of white settlers appeared on the horizon, approaching the village under a white flag of truce. The family consisted of a man, a woman, and 2 young children. Their wagon was loaded with all their belongings, and they looked tired and scared. They were clearly running from something. Chief Red Bear, the leader of their band, rode out to meet them with Swift Eagle and 2 other warriors. Lucy watched, from a distance, her heart pounding. The white man was talking rapidly, gesturing back the way they had come. Lucy could hear bits of the conversation carried on the wind. "Oh, soldiers coming, 3 days behind us, looking for Indian camps, and a white girl they say was kidnapped." Lucy felt the blood drain from her face. They were looking for her. Chief Red Bear called for a council meeting immediately. All the adult members of the tribe gathered in the center of the camp while the children were told to stay in their teepees. But Lucy was too worried to sit still. She crept close enough to hear what was being said. "The soldiers think we stole the white child," Chief Red Bear was saying. "They don't understand our ways. They don't know that Swift Eagle saved her life." "We should send her back," said Thunderhawk, who had never fully accepted Lucy's presence in the tribe. "She's brought nothing but trouble since she arrived." "She's brought nothing but joy," Morningstar said firmly. She is my daughter now. Would you send away your own child to please the white soldiers? She's not really your daughter, Thunderhawk replied.
Look at her skin, her hair, her eyes. She will never truly be one of us. Blood doesn't make family, said Grandmother Willow, her old voice carrying the weight of authority. Love makes family. This child has been loved and has given love in
return. She belongs with us. But even Grandmother Willow looked troubled. However, if keeping her here brings soldiers down on our people, we must think of everyone's safety. The debate continued for hours. Some argued that Lucy should be returned to the white world for everyone's protection. Others insisted that giving her up would be betraying everything they stood for as a people. Lucy listened to it all, feeling more and more like she was being torn in half. She loved these people with all her heart. They had given her life, love, and a sense of belonging. But she could see that her presence was putting them all in danger. Late that night, she made a decision that would change everything. She packed her few belongings, the photograph of her original family, the wooden cross from her father, and some clothes that Morning Star had made for her. She wrote a note in English, knowing that Swift Eagle could read enough to understand it. Thank you for saving my life and loving me. I don't want soldiers to hurt you because of me. I will go to them and tell them the truth. I love you forever. Your daughter, Little Dove. Just before dawn, Lucy slipped out of the teepee and began walking toward where she thought the soldiers might be coming from. She had only been walking for an hour when Swift Eagle found her. Little Dove, he called, riding up on his horse. What are you doing? Lucy turned around, tears streaming down her face. I heard what everyone said last night. I'm causing trouble. For the tribe. I should go back to the white people. Swift Eagle dismounted and knelt in front of her. Do you want to go back to the white people? No, Lucy sobbed. I want to stay with you and Mama Star forever, but I don't want anyone to get hurt because of me. Swift Eagle pulled her into a tight hug. Listen to me, Little Dove. Family doesn't abandon family no matter what. If trouble comes, we face it together. But Thunderhawk is right. I don't really belong anywhere. I'm not white anymore, but I'm not really Indian either. You belong where you are loved, Swift Eagle said firmly. You belong where you choose to make your home. That's what being human means, choosing where your heart lives. He lifted her onto his horse and they rode back toward camp together, but both of them could see dust clouds on the horizon, getting closer. The soldiers were coming. By the time they reached the village, everyone was preparing for the confrontation. The white settler family that had brought the warning was huddled near their wagon, looking terrified. Lucy made another decision then, one that showed how much she had grown in her 2 years with the Lakota. She walked directly to Chief Red Bear. Uncle Red Bear, she said in perfect Lakota, using the respectful title for tribal leaders, let me talk to the soldiers. I can tell them the truth about what happened. Little Dove, that might be dangerous, the chief replied. White soldiers don't always listen, even to white children. But I have to try. I won't let this family be hurt because of me. When the soldiers arrived 2 hours later, they found something they hadn't expected. Instead of a cowering captive, they found a confident young girl who walked out to meet them, flanked by her Lakota parents. The commanding officer, a tired-looking man named Captain Morrison, dismounted from his horse. He had been expecting to find a traumatized white child held against her will. Instead, he saw a healthy, well-cared-for girl who carried herself with dignity. Are you Lucy McCready? He asked. That was my name, Lucy replied in clear English. Now I am also called Little Dove. I am the daughter of Swift Eagle and Morning Star of the Lakota people. Captain Morrison looked confused. Young lady, we've been sent to rescue you from these people. You've been reported as kidnapped. Lucy felt anger rise in her chest. Kidnapped? These people saved my life. My white father left me alone in a freezing cabin to die. Swift Eagle found me and brought me to his family, who fed me and cared for me and loved me. Nevertheless, you're a white child and you belong with white people. We're here to take you to a proper home. This is my proper home, Lucy said firmly. These are my people now. The standoff continued for several tense minutes. The soldiers had their hands on their weapons, and Lucy could see the Lakota warriors positioning themselves protectively around their families. Then the white settler, who had brought the warning, stepped forward. "Captain, I've been watching this camp for 3 days. That child isn't being held prisoner. She's clearly part of their family. Look at how they protect her, how she stands with them." Captain Morrison looked around at the scene. He had expected to find evidence of kidnapping and abuse. Instead, he saw a child who was clearly loved and well cared for, standing bravely between two worlds. But he also had his orders. "Miss McCready, I'm sorry, but I have to take you back to white society. There are families looking to adopt orphaned children. You'll be properly educated and raised in a Christian home." Lucy felt her world starting to crumble again. Just when she had found a place where she belonged, it was being taken away from her. But before she could respond, Swift Eagle stepped forward. "Captain," he said in his careful English, "this child was dying when I found her. Her white family left her to freeze. We made her our daughter and she made us her family. In our way, that is sacred. But if white law says she must go, then she must go." He turned to Lucy, his eyes full of pain. "Little dove, you must decide. You can go with these soldiers to a new white family or..." Part 5. The Heart's True Home. The night after Thomas McCready's arrival at the Lakota camp was the longest of Lucy's life. She lay awake in Morning Star's teepee, listening to the quiet sounds of her adopted family sleeping peacefully around her. Tomorrow she would have to make a choice that would change everything. Outside, she could hear her birth father sleeping restlessly by the dying campfire. Chief Red Bear had offered him hospitality, as was the Lakota way, but Thomas had declined to sleep inside a teepee. The gesture spoke volumes about how he viewed this world his daughter had chosen. When dawn broke over the Dakota Territory, Lucy made her decision. She would ask both her fathers to walk with her to a special place, a hill overlooking the camp where she often went to think. There, away from the pressure of watching eyes, she would speak her heart. "Papa Thomas," she said, using the name she had decided on to distinguish between her two fathers. "Will you come with Papa Swift Eagle and me? I want to show you something." Thomas looked surprised but nodded. Swift Eagle immediately agreed, sensing the importance of this moment. The three of them walked in silence up the gentle slope that rose behind the camp. At the top, the entire territory spread out before them, rolling prairie grassland dotted with wildflowers, a meandering river in the distance, and endless sky that seemed to go on forever. "This is where I come when I need to think," Lucy said, settling herself on a large rock. "When I first came here, I used to climb this hill every day and look for dust clouds on the horizon. I thought one of them might be you coming back for me, Papa Thomas." Thomas winced at the pain in her voice. "But after a while," Lucy continued, "I stopped looking for dust clouds and started looking at everything else. The way the grass moves in the wind, the way the hawks circle when they're hunting, the way the light changes color throughout the day." She gestured at the landscape before them. "I started seeing beauty instead of emptiness. I started seeing home instead of wilderness." Swift Eagle sat quietly nearby, letting Lucy speak her mind without interruption. He had learned over the past 2 years that his adopted daughter was wise beyond her years, and he trusted her to find her own path. "Papa Thomas," Lucy said, turning to face her birth father, "I want you to understand something. When you left me at that cabin, you saved my life." Thomas looked startled. "What do you mean?" "If you had taken me with you to those mining camps, I probably would have died anyway." "Children did die there, didn't they? From accidents, from diseases, from the cold?" Thomas nodded reluctantly. "Yes, it was no place for a child. So by leaving me behind, even though it broke both our hearts, you gave me a chance to survive. You just didn't know that the person who would save me would be a Lakota warrior instead of a white settler." Lucy stood up and walked to the edge of the hill, looking out over the camp below. "But Papa Thomas, I need you to understand something else. The little girl you left behind, that scared, helpless child who couldn't take care of herself, she doesn't exist anymore." She turned back to face both men. "I can track a deer for 5 miles through unmarked territory, I can identify every edible plant within 50 miles of here. I can predict weather patterns by reading cloud formations. I can deliver a baby, set, a broken bone, and treat fever with natural medicines. Thomas stared at his daughter with growing amazement. I speak 3 languages now: English, Lakota, and enough Spanish to trade with the Mexican traders who come through. I can negotiate fair deals for buffalo hides and beadwork. I understand tribal law and white law. Lucy's voice grew stronger as she spoke. I'm not helpless anymore, Papa Thomas. I'm not someone who needs to be rescued or protected from the world. I'm someone who can take care of herself and others. But Lucy, Thomas said quietly, those are all fine skills, but what about your future? What about marriage, children, a home of your own? What makes you think I can't have those things here? Lucy asked. Do you think Lakota women don't get married, don't have children, don't have homes? She gestured toward the camp below, where Morningstar could be seen hanging laundry to dry while keeping an eye on several children playing nearby. I have already seen more of the world and learned more skills than most white girls my age ever will. And I've learned the most important lesson of all. What's that? Thomas asked. I've learned that love isn't about owning someone or controlling their choices. It's about wanting them to be happy, even if their happiness looks different from what you expected. Lucy sat back down on her rock, looking at both her fathers. Papa Swift Eagle, you and Mama Star saved my life and gave me a home when I had nothing. You never asked me to stop being who I was born to be. You just helped me become more than I ever thought I could be. Swift Eagle smiled at her words, pride evident in his eyes. Papa Thomas, Lucy continued, you gave me life in the first place. You taught me to read and write, to pray, to value honesty and hard work. Those lessons have served me well in my life here. Thomas felt tears starting to form in his eyes. So here's what I propose, Lucy said, her voice taking on the confident tone of someone who had thought through every angle of a complex problem. Papa Thomas, that job in Nebraska, is it still available? Yes, I believe so. Why? Take it. Build a good life for yourself. Get married again if you find the right woman. Be happy. Thomas looked confused. But what about you? I'll stay here with my Lakota family. This is my home now. But that doesn't mean you and I can't still be family, too. Lucy smiled at the bewildered expression on her father's face. Papa Thomas, what if every year when the snows melt and traveling becomes easy again, you come visit me? You could stay for a week or two, meet my friends, see how I'm living, and maybe sometimes I could come visit you too. She looked at Swift Eagle. Papa Swift Eagle, would our people accept an arrangement like that? Swift Eagle considered the proposal. If your birth father comes in peace, respects our ways while he is here and treats you with honor, I believe he would be welcomed. Thomas was quiet for a long moment, absorbing what his daughter was suggesting. You want to share yourself between 2 families? I want to belong to both families, Lucy corrected. The way some people belong to both their mother's clan and their father's clan. It's not about dividing myself, it's about being whole. She stood up and walked over to Thomas, taking his weathered hands in hers. Papa Thomas, I know this isn't what you dreamed of when you imagined coming back for me. But dreams change, people change. What matters is whether we can love each other enough to accept those changes. Thomas looked down at his daughter, this poised, confident young woman who spoke with wisdom far beyond her years. She was nothing like the frightened little girl he had left behind, but she was everything he could have hoped she would become. Lucy, he said softly, I spent 3 years feeling guilty for abandoning you. I never imagined that abandoning you might have been the best thing I ever did for you. It wasn't abandoning me, Papa Thomas, it was trusting that somehow, some way I would find my way to safety. And I did. Thomas looked out over the Lakota camp, at the people who had given his daughter not just survival, but a life worth living. And, you're happy here? Really happy? Happier than I ever thought I could be after Mama and baby Daniel died. Thomas nodded slowly. The guilt and regret he had carried for 3 years began to transform into something else. Gratitude to the people who had given his daughter a better life than he ever could have provided. All right, he said finally. All right, Lucy. If this is what you want, if this is truly where you belong, then I accept it. Lucy threw her arms around her birth father, hugging him tightly. Thank you, Papa Thomas. Thank you for loving me enough to let me choose. Swift Eagle approached them and extended his hand to Thomas. Mr. McCready, you will always be welcome in our camp. Lucy is our daughter, but she is your daughter too. That makes you family. Thomas shook the Lakota warrior's hand, feeling a mixture of loss and relief that he hadn't expected. Take good care of her, he said. We will protect her with our lives, Swift Eagle promised. Just as you would. The three of them walked back down the hill together, but the tension that had marked their climb up was gone. In its place was a new understanding, a different kind of family bond that transcended traditional definitions. That evening, the Lakota camp held a celebration feast to honor the resolution of their dilemma. Thomas was invited to sit at the place of honor, not as an outsider but as Lucy's father and therefore part of the extended family. For the first time since arriving at the camp, Thomas allowed himself to really observe the Lakota way of life. He watched children playing games that required strategy and skill. He saw teenagers learning complex crafts from their elders. He observed the respect shown to wisdom and age, the way decisions were made collectively, the care taken to ensure that everyone had enough to eat. Most importantly, he watched his daughter moving confidently through this world that had become hers. She helped serve food, joined in the storytelling, laughed at jokes told in Lakota, and was clearly cherished by everyone around her. She's remarkable, he said to Morningstar, who was sitting nearby. Yes, she is, Morningstar agreed. She has brought great joy to our family. Thank you, Thomas said simply. Thank you for loving her when I couldn't be here to do it myself. Part 4, The Reckoning. The standoff at the Lakota camp ended without bloodshed, but Captain Morrison made it clear that he would return with more soldiers if necessary. Lucy had won this battle, but the war for her freedom was far from over. That night, the tribe held another council meeting. This time, Lucy was allowed to participate as a full member of the family. The soldiers will be back, Chief Red Bear said solemnly. They cannot accept that a white child would choose to live with us freely. Then we leave, Swift Eagle said simply. We go north to Canada, where the white man's soldiers cannot follow. Why should our entire band become exiles because of one child? Thunderhawk demanded. Even if we love her, is it worth losing our homeland? Lucy felt the familiar weight of guilt settling on her shoulders. Before she could speak, Morningstar stood up. That child saved this family as much as we saved her, she said firmly. When we lost our daughter, I wanted to die too. Little Dove brought light back into our lodge. She brought purpose back to our lives. If anyone suggests abandoning her, now they will have to go through me first. Grandmother Willow nodded slowly. The child has brought us together in our grief. She has learned our ways, speaks our language, and honors our traditions. In all ways that matter, she is Lakota. But even as the tribe debated, none of them knew that another confrontation was approaching from an unexpected direction. 3 days after the soldiers left, a lone rider appeared on the horizon. He rode slowly, like a man carrying a heavy burden. As he got closer, Lucy felt her heart stop beating. She would recognize that silhouette anywhere, even after 2.5 years. It was her father. Thomas McCready had finally come back. Lucy stood frozen outside the teepee, watching her past approach on horseback. Thomas looked older, thinner, and worn down by hard living. His clothes were patched and dirty, and his face had the look of a man who had seen too much suffering. When Thomas saw the Lakota camp, he stopped his horse and seemed to consider turning around. But then his eyes found Lucy, and recognition hit him like a physical blow. Lucy? He called out, his voice cracking with emotion. Lucy? Is that really you? Lucy couldn't move or speak. The father she had waited for, hoped for, dreamed about, for so long was finally here. But she was no longer the same frightened little girl he had left behind. Swift Eagle emerged from the teepee, and immediately positioned himself protectively near Lucy. He had heard enough English to understand who this man must be. Thomas dismounted and walked slowly toward them, his hands empty and visible to show he meant no harm. "My God, Lucy, look at you," he whispered. You're so grown up." "Hello, Papa," Lucy finally managed to say, though the word felt strange in her mouth after calling Swift Eagle by that name for 2 years. Thomas's eyes filled with tears as he heard her voice. "Lucy, I'm so sorry I left you. I tried to find work, tried to earn enough money to come back for you, but everything went wrong. The mining camp collapsed and I got hurt, and then I got sick and—" He stopped talking as he noticed Lucy's appearance more closely. She was wearing Lakota clothing, a beautiful dress made from soft deer hide and decorated with beadwork. Her hair was braided in the traditional style, with small feathers and colored threads woven through it. What happened to you?" Thomas asked, confusion replacing relief in his voice. "These people saved my life, Papa," Lucy said quietly. "When you left me, I nearly died from cold and hunger. Swift Eagle found me and brought me to his family." Thomas looked at Swift Eagle for the first time, really seeing him. Here was a Lakota warrior standing protectively next to his daughter, and Lucy was clearly comfortable with his presence. You've been living with them all this time?" Thomas asked. "They're my family now, Papa. They adopted me. They love me." Thomas's face went through several emotions at once: relief that his daughter was alive, gratitude to the people who had saved her, and something that looked almost like jealousy. "Well, that's good that they took care of you," he said awkwardly. "But I'm here now. I came back just like I promised. We can be a family again." Lucy felt her heart breaking in a completely new way. For over 2 years she had dreamed of this moment. But now that it was here, she realized how much she had changed. "Papa," she said gently, "where would we go? What would we do?" "I found work on a ranch down in Nebraska. The foreman said I could bring you with me. You'd live in a proper house again, go to a proper school, learn to be a proper young lady." The word proper stung Lucy. Was there something improper about the way she had been living? About the family that had loved and cared for her? Morning. Star appeared from the teepee, carrying a bowl of food. She had been watching the reunion from inside, her heart breaking for everyone involved. "You must be Lucy's birth father," she said in careful English. "I am Morning Star. We are glad you are safe." Thomas looked at this Indian woman who had clearly been caring for his daughter. He could see the love in her eyes when she looked at Lucy, the same protective instinct he felt himself. "Thank you," he said quietly. "Thank you for taking care of her when I couldn't." "She is easy child to love," Morning Star replied simply. Thomas turned back to Lucy. "Sweetheart, get your things. We should leave soon if we want to make good time before dark." But Lucy didn't move. "Papa, I can't just leave." "What do you mean you can't leave? I'm your father. I came back for you like I promised." "You came back," Lucy agreed, "but I'm not the same person you left behind. These people aren't just strangers who helped me. They're my family. Morning Star is my mother. Swift Eagle is my father. I have aunts and uncles and cousins here. I belong here." Thomas felt like he had been punched in the stomach. "Lucy, they're not your real family. I'm your real family. Your mother, your real mother, she's buried back home. Your baby brother is buried next to her. And you left me to die with them," Lucy said, the words coming out before she could stop them. The silence that followed was deafening. Thomas stared at his daughter as if she had struck him physically. "Lucy, I had no choice. I was trying to save your life. By abandoning me, by making sure you had a chance at survival. Do you think it was easy for me to drive away from that cabin? Do you think I didn't cry every single day I was gone?" Lucy saw the pain in her father's eyes and felt sorry for her harsh words, but she also felt the need to make him understand what his choices had cost both of them. "Papa, I know you thought you were doing the right thing, but when you left me, I didn't just lose my home. I lost my faith in the idea that families stay together no matter what. But we're together now, Thomas said desperately, are we? You're asking me to leave the only stable family I've known in 3 years to go live with someone who left me once before. Thomas looked around at the Lakota camp, at the people who were clearly protective of his daughter. He saw Swift Eagle, standing ready to defend Lucy if necessary, saw Morningstar's tears as she realized she might lose another daughter. Lucy, I understand that these people have been good to you, but you're white. You belong in the white world. You need to learn white ways, marry a white man, have a proper life. What if I don't want a proper life? Lucy asked. What if I want to stay here with people who love me for who I am, not who they think I should become? The argument continued for hours, with Thomas becoming more desperate and Lucy becoming more firm in her position. Finally, Swift Eagle stepped forward. Mr. Macready, he said in his careful English, your daughter has become precious to us. We do not want to lose her, but we also do not want to keep her if she wishes to go. He turned to Lucy. Little dove, this is your birth father. He has rights that come from bringing you into the world. If you choose to go with him, we will be sad, but we will understand. And if I choose to stay? Swift Eagle looked at Thomas. Then we ask her father to understand that she has found a home where she is loved and valued. We ask him to let her choose. Thomas felt trapped between his legal rights as a father and the clear evidence that his daughter had found happiness without him. I've spent 3 years trying to get back to her, he said quietly. 3 years of broken promises to myself and to her memory. I can't just walk away now. No one is asking you to walk away, Morningstar said softly. But maybe you could stay too. Everyone looked at her in surprise. Stay, Thomas repeated. Our tribe has known white men who chose to live with us. If you truly want to be with your daughter and if she wants to stay here, perhaps you could become part of our family too. Lucy felt a spark of hope. Could it be that simple? Could her two families somehow become one? But Thomas was already shaking his head. Ma'am, I appreciate the offer, but I'm not cut out for this kind of life. I need familiar things. White food, white customs, a white church. Then you're asking me to choose between you and them, Lucy said sadly. I'm asking you to choose between your real family and people who took you in temporarily. They didn't take me in temporarily, Papa. They adopted me. Forever. The same way you became my father when I was born. It's a bond that can't be broken just because it's inconvenient. Thomas realized then that he had lost more than just 3 years. He had lost his little girl's childhood, her absolute trust, her belief that he would always be there to protect her.